Real money, what is it? Is it the paper money we use today? The George Washingtons, the Benjamin Franklins, the digital zeros in our bank accounts, the little blips, the binary codes, the numbers on our credit cards? I think most of us know that's not really the truth. This is money right here. You're looking at it. Thousands of years, gold and silver have been money. And of course, currently, since 2008, 2009, there's been another contender to the throne of what is real money. Some would argue blockchain has some desirable properties that could use it, that could help blockchain or cryptocurrencies for their use in commerce. There are some similarities to some extent, but that battle is still being fought. Nothing's been decided yet. It's still very young, and this is thousands of years old. It's done its job as money. Now, this particular video, I just want to touch on a topic that's come up. A lot of anti-gold folks will throw out the argument that you can't use gold or silver anymore as real money because there's just simply not enough of it. With all the wealth we've created, all the total size of the stock markets, the property markets, the corporations like Apple, Microsoft, the wealth, our current modern society would not be able to function with the very limited amount of gold and silver that is out there. It simply couldn't function properly. There wouldn't be enough. And I can kind of see what they're talking about. Just as an example, when you look at silver, a lot of people try to quantify how much silver is really out there. And there's really not a lot compared to how many people live in the world. I think there's probably around 6 to 7 billion people on Earth. And best I can tell, there's probably around 6 billion ounces of silver. Could be less, could be a little bit more. It's hard to tell exactly because a lot of it is in private hands, packed in the basement, packed in a vault, and hard to account for that, really. But even that being said, let's say maximum as a very reasonable estimate, maybe there's 1 ounce of silver for every person on Earth. So how could you go into Walmart, buy a bunch of things, and use that as money? Especially when a lot of people like us have hundreds, thousands of ounces of silver. Well, that means everybody in your neighborhood, everybody in your community, if you've got thousands of ounces, well, that means most of the people around you won't have any. So how can they use it as money? How would that work? Well, may I suggest that people are forgetting copper. Yep, that's right, copper tokens. And to be honest, we've been using these copper tokens alongside gold and silver for hundreds of years. They've had a rich history as money. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're valuable, nearly as valuable as gold or silver, or as stable in price over time. They're not. There have been episodes throughout history, I think in Scandinavia and in Russia, where they tried using copper as money, and to an extent, they flooded the market and devalued their own currencies. So you can't use it as pure money. It has to be a supplement. Just a supplement to gold and silver, but it fills in the gaps, is my point. I mean, we did it here in America. And I meant to bring out some pennies, but apparently I forgot. I do have one. This was the chief example. There you have an old American penny. Well, I guess we never actually called it the penny, the British did. This would be a cent. 1/100th of a dollar. And what you might notice is that it's bigger than the old pennies. Probably about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit larger. But the reason being was that because it was larger because it was more a form of real money. They were deriving its value from its weight, to an extent. And I could see, possibly in the future, we could use copper rounds as cents for the small change. And that way, if you're going to the store, you're using a silver dollar to buy some goods. And maybe they don't have tons of silver dimes, quarters, half dimes. Yes, those used to be a type of coin as well. But you could use copper for the small change. And I think that really changes the formula when people say there's just simply not enough. That's not true. And as Jim Rickards and many others point out, quite obviously, there is enough gold and silver. It's simply a question of price. At the current price, no, there's not enough gold and silver to be used as money. But if it's revalued to an appropriate level of purchasing power, then it would work. And I would assume the gold to silver ratio would tighten as well in such a scenario. And I don't think, really, you'd need to bring in other metals, like platinum or palladium, but they could certainly be used in trade units, possibly, between countries, maybe. But that's my point, is that a lot of people have forgotten about copper. And copper would play, I would imagine, a very large part filling in the remainder, plugging the holes, just as it always has. And you look at other periods of time when they had deflation, lack of money circulating in the system. What did people use? They used copper tokens. Around the time of the Civil War, there was a scarcity of hard species, hard money. What did they use? For trading goods at the small stores, establishments, copper tokens. Same thing, when Andrew Jackson killed the central bank, there was a run on money. I'm sure it's a much more complicated story. People started hoarding silver. I think the value of silver had gone up at that time before the Comstock Lode, surprisingly. So Gresham's Law, the silver was pulled from circulation and there was a shortage of money. The credit market was down. What did they do to fill in the gap? Hard times tokens. Copper money. So the world wouldn't cease to exist if we went back to hard money. It wouldn't be the road, cannibalism in the streets. People would start using a little bit of copper. And I'm not saying you'd be using a coin this big, although I did bring out as an example this. This is from Russia. I believe around the time of Catherine the Great. Could be wrong, but it says 1784. So that was right around the time of the American Revolution as well. And this is a big coin. I should have brought more examples, but you can see compared to an American cent, It's probably easily 4 times as heavy. And this coin, very interesting coin, is denominated as a kopeck. Interestingly, it's got a reading of sorts around the edge to prevent debasement and fraud, which that's pretty interesting. And you can tell it's old. It's not perfectly stamped or anything. It's uneven, a little wobbly and wonky in spots. It's not centered. But it's a big hunky coin. I think actually it's more than an ounce. Here's a 1 ounce coin for comparison. But I'm not saying we're going to go back to coins this big. It might be a little too large for such an invaluable piece of money. And where this was tried really was in Russia. Britain had what they called the cartwheel penny. That's pretty interesting. I would like to get an example of that. It's similar in size. Sorry about the interruption. So my point was, I don't expect we'll go back to coins this large in commerce, having these jingle around in your pockets. But copper will be used around the edges as a supplement to gold and silver as money. And I did find some other examples. Speaking of tokens, that's what it would be. It's a token form of money. Here's some tokens I found, copper tokens. These could be used at trading centers. And I did find some of these. These are pennies. British, English pennies. Pretty cool piece of history. These were used very recently. You can see there's young head Elizabeth. And they're very large. This is a 1964. You got Britannia. Seated. Pretty cool coin. Much bigger than the American pennies. So I did bring out some of those. Nice copper pennies. Yes. This could be used again as a supplement. And again, I'm not saying copper is incredibly valuable. It's not. But it could be a token money as we reestablish a monetary system. Right? That's the point. You can see, over time, our pennies got much smaller. If I can find one of the British ones, they were even larger than the American cent. Maybe the same way. I think they're a little thinner, perhaps, but yes, I think it's not accurate to say there's simply not enough gold and there's not enough silver. It could never be used again. It's far too much wealth, far too many paper assets for us to ever go back to that kind of money in the future. It's not true. If we change the price, we could go back to hard money. And who knows, we'll see what happens with cryptocurrencies. They can be I think they can work in conjunction with precious metals, but in and of themselves, as a store of value, cryptocurrencies, I don't think they fit that bill. Gold and silver do. Thank you and have a great day.